Well, good morning, Grit Nation. This is Coffee with Coach. I know it's a little bit, I don't even know what time it is. I've been going nonstop this morning. I know this is not our normal setup for Coffee with Coach. Usually I'm headed somewhere. I had the opportunity this morning to be able to have some extra time this morning where I could actually do Coffee with Coach from the Grit Studios. Wow, that just totally froze on me. Guess it didn't like me drinking my coffee. And give the opportunity for some individuals, and I almost spilled my coffee. Give the opportunity for some individuals to come in live. We're going to be we're following up. This is our third Coffee with Coach in a row. This is episode, I believe it's 32. I'll have to go back and check. I put 32, but thinking about it, I'm not really sure. It's 31 or 32, 32, 33. It's somewhere in there. Either way, we're rolling with it this morning. Over this week, we've been talking about the warrior mindset. And ignore the sound in the background, for that is my cat. The thing about living in a family that loves animals, when I first started Grit for Life, I had no animals. When I started getting into it, met my wife, when I married her, she had a cat and a dog. That dog is now at our property in Arizona, but we got another dog, kept the cat. Then, for those who are very familiar with whiskey, we got whiskey. Then, when my kids came to permanently live with me instead of having a shared parenting plan, my son came with a lab. My daughter came with a snake. Then my son ended up getting a cat. So one of the things that is very difficult now with Grit for Life is that, and Grit Nation, is finding time to actually be able to do something where there's really no background noise. So the sound you just heard was my wife's cat, who is now sitting behind the camera looking at me like, why are you talking about me? We've been talking about the warrior mindset. For those who did, I believe, let me see, which workshop was this? See, for those I talk about journaling. There's my journal. I think this may have been the basic training workshop. Not fully sure. My workshops and my notebook kind of run together when I'm doing it. I've got several different workshops in here. I have the resist workshop. I have a lot of different workshops. But you heard me talk many times. So those who have done our last few workshops, this is probably not necessarily new to you, but it's always good to refresh. You've heard me talk over this week a couple different times about that ethos driven life. What's up, Tracker? Tracker and I we're just talking. I was just getting ready to do Coffee with Coach, and she happens to be in my area right now. And so she says, "Hey, Coach, I'm near you. Do you want to meet up for a cup of coffee or something?" And I was just about ready to do this, and I was like, "Well, cool. I'll do Coffee with Coach on my way to go see Tracker." And then we figured out that next Tuesday we're supposed to be meeting up, because a lot easier. Logistics. But ethos driven life. When studying the warriors of old and even today, being a soldier myself, having spent the time in the military that I did, I learned a lot about ethos. Again, the thing that we see so many times in a warrior-driven mindset, or talking about warriors, talking about these crazy, just over-the-top heroes, right? That we build up in our heads. When really truly getting down into the middle of it, we talked this week about how it's the glory and the glamour of what Hollywood has created the warrior to be for movies. And it's really cool to say that, oh, I've got the warrior mindset, or I am self-aware. We talked about that. That's some of the cool new terms, woke and self-aware, because it sounds cool. But individuals don't really understand it. They don't dig down to find out what it is. And I have learned that when talking about an ethos or an ethos focused life or an ethos driven life, there are individuals out there that may not have ever heard the word ethos or understand it. And then there are the individuals who have heard it and thinks it sounds really cool. And so they go, oh yeah, they maybe Googled it and looked up on Wikipedia, what ethos is. And they're like, oh yeah, that's what I do. But then when talking to them, I discovered that they really have no idea what they're talking about. They don't live an ethos driven life. And even more so than just talking with them, watching them. But a warrior who has begun or has truly started mastering the art of being a warrior, an individual who truly has started, hold on. Sorry, folks. Again, cat. We have discovered, it's so funny, side note here. We have discovered that since marrying my wife, cats, I don't care for cats. Now, I put up with cats because my wife loves cats, my family loves cats. I don't like cats. And this cat truly understands that I find her annoying, because it is so funny. She will be sound asleep, she'll be doing things, and as soon as I go live on any type of format, whether it's the podcast, whether it's live here on Facebook, if you're watching this on YouTube, understand that you may be hearing me talk about individuals like I might be saying shout outs or calling. That's because the original video of this was done live on our Facebook Grit for Life Facebook group. And then we take it and we also put it on YouTube. For those who are on Facebook Live, but do not subscribe to our YouTube channel, I ask you to please do that. Do that for me. Just subscribe. Even if you don't ever use YouTube, do me a favor, go on YouTube, find our YouTube channel, Grit for Life, subscribe to it. For those who are watching this on YouTube, vice versa, go over to the Facebook group. We get a lot more information over there on what we do and what's going on with Grit for Life. But back to what I was saying about the cat, was we used to have a podcast. We've done a lot of different things, and I am not kidding. The house can be quiet, the cats can be asleep, and as soon as she hears the tone of my voice that I am live, she will start making she'll start making noises. She'll come up right beside the camera and start giving herself a bath. It is well, I do not find it hilarious, but my family finds it hilarious. Back to what we're talking about, an ethos-driven life. When I came to a point in my life where I really said, okay, enough's enough. Enough. I feel that I'm just driven by the winds. I am just tossed and turned by the sea. I have no real direction. I have no real foundation. I can't have nothing I really can anchor into when the storms of life and the chaos of life really start battering me around. And when I started taking a look at what I knew, which is absolutely the warrior, the fighter, that soldier, people ask all the time, hey, Coach, why is it that you always talk about the military? One, it's what I know. Two, I think that when we look at how we fight in life, we can learn a lot from military experience and things like that. Because when I look at my time in the military and when I do studies on warriors, and I have a book over here you probably have heard me talk about. Hold on, let me grab it. So here is, I talk about reading all the time, how vital and how important it is. On my nightstand, my daily reading, in some form or fashion, I have Marcus Aurelius's book, Meditations, Stoic Philosophies. I'm currently reading a book on the history of the Vikings. The other book that's on my nightstand is American Generalship, Character is Everything, the Art of Command. You can tell this book is very well worn. It has coffee stains. It has notes in it. It has different things that I have highlighted. Here's some more stuff. Highlights. And then the very last one is a handbook for the new Stoics, and it is kind of like a 52-week by week lesson. That's my nightstand. That's what I'm currently looking at and currently reading. When I started doing these things, then I started seeing something. I started seeing, when I went into the Army, we have certain principles that you learn from the Army. Then when I went into the Air Force, the same thing, and I know each branch has that. It's something that we learned, we quoted off, similar to what I was saying earlier, where people say, "Oh yeah, I live by an ethos, coach." Well, do you? And it was the same way. It sounds good. You learn something, but do you actually apply it? Do you actually live your life by it? Do you use it as the guiding principles, the foundation, in an essence, the constitution of your life? So when I was in the Army and I started learning these different principles of the Army, of the core values is what they call them, we learned them. We had to. It was required, and you could spout them off. What I came to understand as I got older is that, yeah, I knew them. I knew them by heart. And yes, for the most part, they were principles that I lived by. But I didn't understand that I was living by them. I didn't correlate what I was doing to that principle, to that core value. And there wasn't a time where I would sit there, if I questioned what I was doing, that I would look at a core value and go, "Oh, well, does it match with this? It doesn't, so I don't do it." I never did that. Not until I was older, and actually later on when I became a sergeant and began to lead and wanted to become a better leader. The thing that I want to say is that life, we've already learned it. We've learned about how be aware of yourself, not within the situation. We learned yesterday. And I just lost connectivity. Let me see if give me 1 second, folks. Yep, that's on too. Give me a second. Okay, I think we're back. For those watching on YouTube, I'm sorry, we're not going to be editing this. You're going to get it just like they are on Facebook. Today, my phone has been having really bad connectivity issues, and I have the best phone company plan for this area, so I don't know, but we're back. We learned about making your calculations in peacetime, training in peacetime, so that when life comes, because life will be chaotic. We talked about that yesterday. The thing that I want to talk about today is, how do we go from understanding, having checks and balances in our life? How do we go and get that warrior mindset of, we said this all the time, is like that in the military, that kill or be killed. Rise always or fall permanently. Well, what do I mean by that? We have to have something that in our life is our vessel. It's our gear. It is even more than that. It is literally to the core of who we are, and we make the decisions. In essence, our handbook. When I was Army, I've talked about this before. I was never a Ranger. I never went to Ranger school, but Army infantry, we swore by the Ranger handbook. It is a book of different guidelines and different techniques and things like that to use in certain situations, and you devoured it. If you go back and look at where the Ranger handbook came from, the principles of it actually in the fighting came from the Revolutionary War. And so very interesting. If you love history, go check that out. But the point of it is that we had this guidebook, this book that we use to teach us things and to guide us by. Because you see, life is going to be chaotic, and we have to have checks and balances. We have to have that compass that allows us to move through the situations, because if not, we will, in military terms, warrior terms, we will be killed. And so it is either we take out the threat or the threat takes us out. But how can we learn to take that threat out? What is the principles and the guidance that takes us through that? How do we learn to rise in each situation? Because if we do not, we will fall permanently. We will be out for the count. I said this when we first started taking a look at the warrior mindset, is that not everybody is meant to be a warrior. Not everyone will be a warrior. Everyone may want to be a warrior until it requires, I did a TikTok the other day about this. Everyone wants to be a warrior until warrior things need to be done. Being a warrior is not easy. One of the reasons we have the statement here, and we have shirts that say, grit, we don't do easy. Being a warrior is not easy. A true essence of that fighter on that battlefield. It's not easy. You will go times where you are exhausted and worn out. You will go over times for long periods of time where you will not be able to rest. You'll go long periods of time where you will have to survive on the nutrition that you gained before going into combat, because you don't have time to eat. You don't have time to rest. You are literally fighting for your existence. You ever feel that way? You ever feel that way in life? Things happen and you're just like, man, I'm fighting for existence right now. That's it. We have what we call a very large extended family. We have individuals who we claim as our family that we call our tribe. And we had, without going into detail, we had something really big come to light last night. It changed life. I thought it was ironic because I was talking yesterday in Coffee with Coach about the chaos and how life will hit you, and you cannot make calculations beforehand. You have to be ready. Unbeknownst to me, I was not aware that by the time my night would end after giving that Coffee with Coach, our life would change. We had some news that came to light yesterday that I remember looking at someone very close to me, and I looked and I said to her, life changes. What we were this morning is not what we will ever go back to. What we knew this morning is not what we know now. Life changes. In one split second, with one sentence, with one phone call, with one word, life changes. But the key to it is that there's something that will be consistent, and that consistent is us. We are the consistent element that moves through life as it changes. And yes, we will be required to some extent to change with it. We cannot help that. For when we find the news or the knowledge or that phone call or that word, we will change. But the very core of who we are, that is where we want to have the warrior mindset. For the core and principle of who we are as an individual, as a fighter, as that constant in life's chaos, to the very core doesn't need to change. Or it does need to change in the concept it needs to grow. But what I'm trying to get at is that when we can learn to live an ethos life, and we can find what our ethos is and what an ethos is, then the core, there is this heartbeat within the chaos. It is that torch in the storm. It is that tapping of the individual trapped underneath rubble, saying, I'm still here. It is our soul that beats constant. The world around us is a storm. The world around us is chaos. The world around us is good. The world is good and the world is great. Today's a fantastic day, but there should be one constant thing. Once you become aware of yourself, Talked about this day one. And then once you have planned in your temple, and now you find yourself on the battlefield, one constant thing. That constant is your ethos. We have a choice of whether we are going to survive or thrive. I hear people all the time say, I'm a survivor. And I used to say that. I used to say, hey, I'm a survivor of the things that I have gone through. And there is a truth to that. But if we stay within the survivor mentality, we will trap ourselves just as we many times will trap ourselves within the victim mentality. You say, but coach, isn't that good? I survived. Yeah. No, that's good. And I'm glad that you survived. And you should be proud that you survived. But if that is where you stay, then you are not growing. For you see, it came to me one day that I survived my molestation and I survived my immaturity. I survived the mental, emotional abuse. I survived the bullying. I survived my own mistakes. I survived my own bad choices. I have survived everything so far that I have gone through that I threatened to take me out. But if I stay on that, what am I focusing on? In order to say I am a survivor, my focus still remains on the element that I survived. I can't say, well, I'm a survivor of childhood molestation without bringing up the childhood molestation. So when I bring up anything that I survived, I am marking a line in the sand and I'm camping out at the point where I realized I was a survivor. I don't grow from there. Every time I say, well, I survived, I'm not growing. We have to be able to move. The warrior doesn't just stand on the battlefield that he just survived or she just survived and just stay there. He says, whew, I survived that. All right. I'm still here. Yeah, see, that's what saying that. They understand they survived it, but they're just staying on the battlefield and they're reliving it over and over and over again. They went from being a victim because they no longer wallow in it. They stand with pride that they survived, but they're just kind of chilling on the battlefield. And a true warrior mindset understands that the battlefield that you just won, not the battlefield you want to stay, because you could end up having more. What's up, Barnett? You could have more things happen on that battlefield. You want to get to cover. You want to be able to activate that warrior mindset to where you are now going from you're a victim being shot at, attacked, life is chaos, to you survived it, to now I want to thrive. I now want to take the offense. I don't want to just be on the defense. I want to take the offense. I survived whatever it was I was going through by being on the defense. I survived it. I'm staying here, but now I want to go on the offense. I want to thrive. I want to excel. I want to grow. Surviving is getting by, outlasting with a hope. And what I mean by that is this, and the reason I'm looking down is I have my notes from the workshop that we covered this in. Surviving is a mindset where it says, surviving, I'm just getting by. I'm surviving. Cool, I'm surviving. How you doing? Surviving. How you doing? Living the dream. I love that. I love when people say that because I always follow up with, really? That's your dream? You are really living the dream? Well, no. I mean, I just say that. Then why do you say it? Remember, we've talked about in Grit for Life, Grit Nation, we talk about you must speak with purpose. So when you state, I'm surviving, you're saying that in an essence of almost back to the victimhood. I'm surviving. Wow. If that's what surviving is, I don't want to do it. Surviving is just getting by. So yes, you went from being a victim to surviving whatever is the chaos that you were in, and that is fantastic, but we want you to do more than survive. I want you to thrive. Surviving is just getting by. It's that outlasting with hope. It's I am outlasting whatever it is that I was going through, hoping that life gets better. Who's in control there? Well, I am, coach. Are you sure? Because if you're just outlasting something, are you taking the fight to the situation that is attacking you? If you aren't, and you are just out trying to outlast it, then you are not aware. We talked about this, I think, in episode Coffee with Coach episode 30. We talked about this. Then you are not being self-aware of your presence within the situation. Your focus is on the situation, not you and what you can do in the situation. By just saying you're surviving, you're just trying to outlast it with hope. You're hoping that you outlast the situation. And so your focus is outward and not inward. By saying I'm going to thrive, that is turning my focus from the outside and turning it in and becoming responsible and self-aware and saying, you know what? I'm giving the big middle finger to this. I'm not going to just outlast the storm. I'm going to take on the storm. I'm going to win. But how do we get to that mindset? What allows us to know that we can do that? We have to have the foundation that we anchor into, and that's our ethos. You said, Coach, you keep talking about this, but what is it? I'm going to get to that. Thriving is flourishing forward with confidence. Now, did you see the difference between that? Surviving is outlasting with hope. It's staying there. It's just like, I'm here. I'm going to outlast this storm. I'm going to outlast it. Thriving is a forward movement with confidence. How do you get the confidence though, Coach? Like, I don't have confidence that I'm going to make this. I don't have confidence. When I was I spent years not knowing when I was going to see my kids again. I spent years fighting over and over and over and over. And there were days I wanted to give up. There were days in my mind that I thought maybe my kids would be better off without me. I don't want that. Man, I'm worn out. I am tired. I am so exhausted. I'm tired of hearing the lies about me. I'm tired of the fight. I am tired of the constant every single day. All I want to do is be a dad. But my kids are being constantly lied to about me, and I constantly keep losing the battle. And I came to a point where I just sat down and I'm like, well, I survived the courts. I survived all this, but I'm just going to try to outlast this. That's where despair starts sitting in, because you don't know if you're going to outlast it. You're hoping you outlast it, but hope doesn't give us confidence. Hope is not us in control. So I finally came to a point one day I said, you know what? I got to thrive. I've got to move forward with confidence, knowing that it is a battle, but the end result, I am not sure what it's going to be, but I know I sure as hell going to try to fight it. And I'm going to go on the offense. What allowed me to do that? It is when I started living an ethos-driven life. In order to do this, we must establish ground rules. Clear and concise ground rules. Grounded in principle. Grounded in principle that we say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. And this is what's going to govern my actions. Mind, body, and soul. The way that I think, the way that I speak, and the way that I act. That is what we mean when I talk about an ethos. An ethos-driven life. When we are able to establish an ethos, or those principles, that series of principles, those ground rules in our life, that clear and concise, boy, it makes life a lot more simpler. I'm not saying you're not going to discover storms. I'm not saying that you're not going to go through the chaos. I'm not saying that life's going to trip you up. What I'm saying is when it does, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know because I have built clear and concise standards. And there will be people that will not understand your ethos. It's not for them. There will be people who will challenge your ethos. There will be even individuals who will find out what your ethos is and will point out when you don't live your ethos in order to tear you down. But the beautiful thing is that when you are grounded in these principles, it does not matter what others think, say, or do about you. because you become unwavered. You become that fortress. You become that steady ship. So what is an ethos? What is an ethos-driven life? How does it fit in with the warrior mindset? An ethos is characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations. That's a lot to chew on. I don't like that. I mean, it covers it, but I'm a simple infantry guy. I want to keep it simple. Aristotle, instead, referring to a man's character or personality, they must have balance between passion and caution. Hold on a second, I'm looking here. So some of the things that we have to understand is that there is an ethos and a pathos. A pathos is not based upon principle. It's not based upon concrete foundation that you can pour down, anchor into, and build on. It is built upon emotion. It's wavering. An ethos is saying these are solid principles. It is a series of clear and concise, and only you can decide what that is. But when we have clear and concise direction, a soldier, a warrior understands where they fit in and how they are going to fight their battles. If we do not have clear and concise instruction, it becomes chaos. We add to the chaos because I'm trying to shoot over here and then I'm trying to shoot over there and I'm wasting energy. I'm wasting, in essence, ammo. And I have no idea truly what's going on, and I become chaotic in the situation, adding to the chaos that I am currently in, and then I become confused, and I cannot win a battle in the midst of confusion. I have to control what I can control, and what I can control is starting off with is to build a clear and concise mission statement, clear and concise set of rules and principles and ethos that I live by. How do I do it? How do I create an ethos, and why is it important? In the Army, we had these core values, mission first, never accept defeat, never quit, and never leave a fallen comrade. In the Air Force, embodiment of the warrior spirit. It's tough-mindedness, tireless, motivation, unceasing vigilance, commitment, and self-sacrifice. One of the best ways you can create an ethos for your life and start understanding it, first of all, is listen to something like this or go study it, but is draw from. We want a warrior mindset. So let's take a look, and we're going to be taking a look over the next couple of days, different concepts and different core values of what we understand different warriors to have. And in that, then you can tie it into your life and say, okay, how can I word this to make it work for me? I'm going to show how you can do this right now, using some of the things I just stated. So the Army, mission first. One of my ethos things is family first. Everything that I do, family first. That is an ethos for me. How does that work? My family knows and is aware. If I were, and you guys have seen this, if I am in the middle of doing this or if I'm in the middle of doing something, it doesn't matter what I've got going on. It doesn't matter what I'm working on. It doesn't matter if I even lose my job. I can get another job. I can't get another family. Family is always first. Where this comes into play is that I did a job, I was working in security. And I was I was contracted to the security company. I was self-employed in essence. And I remember telling the guy who owns the company, when he hired me, I said, I need you to know this, my family is first. I do not need this particular job. If I got to go to work at McDonald's, I will, if it means families first. And I remember there were a couple of different times over the probably 2 years that I worked for him that he would call me up and he says, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, no, I can't. And he goes, well, I really need you to do this. I said, I understand that, but I can't. And there were times where he would threaten to not put me on another contract. And I said, that's fine. But I need you to understand the reason I can't do this right now, I've got something going on with my family that I need to take care of. And I don't need your job. I need my family. Family's first. So when it comes to any decision that I make, life becomes really clear. And the chaos of life starts to clear up a little bit. When I find myself in chaos, or I'm finding myself having to make a decision, when I'm having to try to understand what it is that I want to do, I first and foremost ask myself this: how does family first fit into this? I have been given numerous opportunities to have some amazing jobs. My kids have recently, and I were talking about this, and they brought it up. They said, Dad, we didn't understand this when we were young, but you, now growing older, we see that you had many opportunities. You were offered, because of your talents and your abilities, you were offered many opportunities where I could have been making a lot of money. But when I took a look at it and I saw how it would affect my family, or it would draw me away from my family, there were things that I would have loved to have done. There have been dream jobs that I have turned down, would have loved to have done. But my family didn't fit into that. So, family first. And when I compared it to my ethos of family first, the decision wasn't hard. I said no. Why? Because family first. You're like, well, Coach, but it could have brought you a lot of money and then you could have supported your family. Money doesn't drive my family. We need money to make it through the world. I don't need a lot of money. I don't need a huge house. I don't need fancy cars. I don't need prestige and popularity. I need my family. I need to know that my family's taken care of. I need to know that my kids know, and I've shared this story before, where when I was a law enforcement officer and my son called and I immediately answered the phone. He's like, hey, Dad. I was like, hey, is this an emergency? And he's like, no. I said, can I call you back? He goes, yeah, why? What's up? I said, well, I'm in the middle of arresting somebody. I currently have handcuffs on them. They're standing right here. And he laughed. He goes, you really answered the phone, Dad, while you're arresting somebody? And I go, yeah, family first. If I hold true to that ethos, I can't go wrong. Because that's a principle that is important to me, and it is a driving force in my life. I don't need sleep. If it means that I've had nights where I've had times where I have spent nights up all night long, sitting in my living room when one of my children were dealing with mental health crisis. They slept. They were sound asleep. I stayed awake because I needed to make sure they were safe. Family first. Where did I get that? Not only did I got that because I didn't get that because it sounds good. I got that because that's what's important to me. But then when you take a look at the Army statement, mission first, well, my mission is my family. So that's my first ethos. That's my first and most important piece of my ethos-driven life. Every decision that I make, I base it upon that. I look at my ethos and I say, what is my clear and concise to this chaos? Family first. Never accept defeat. This was a huge one. So in my ethos, excuse me, I literally copied this. This is part of my ethos. Family first, and then I will not accept defeat. In essence, what that means is quitting is never an option. And I've shared with you how this comes into play numerous times in my life. When I came to a point in my life, I wanted to take my life. Well, I live an ethos-driven life, so let's put that in. Let's plug that into what does it look like with my ethos? Family first. Obviously, if I take my life, I'm not putting my family first, I'm putting myself first. And never accept defeat. If I take my life, if I call it quits, I'm accepting defeat. I am stating that there is nothing more, it doesn't get any better from here. I've either hit rock bottom or hit the high top. It doesn't get better from here. I give up. In writing my novels, there were numerous times that I have had nightmares when it comes to my novels. for those who are reading them now and enjoying them, if I had quit, if I had accepted those defeats when my first novel was actually stolen and being published without my consent, if I had accepted defeat then and there and gave up and said, I'm done, never going to write again, you wouldn't be reading The Nephilim, The Rise of the Vapor. I wouldn't be getting ready to publish my fourth novel. So when life becomes chaotic for me and I am feeling overwhelmed and I cannot hear my own voice in my head and I am just surviving, remember that hope of outlasting instead of thriving, moving forward with confidence. And I don't know what to do. I go back to my ethos, family first, and then never accept defeat. Well, can't give up. I live a purpose-driven life. I live an ethos-driven life. I can't give up. I'm not going to accept defeat. When I feel as if I can't, that I'm not winning, okay, I'm not going to accept defeat. I'm going to figure this out. And that puts us engaged. You see, when we start accepting defeat, we have disengaged ourselves from the situation and are accepting the fact that we no longer have control and have the ability to come up with a new solution. We are pulling ourselves out of the situation instead of becoming self-aware of ourselves in the situation. But when I say, I will never accept defeat, I'm once again re-engaging and putting myself in, going, okay, right now this looks like defeat, but what can I do? How can I think outside the box? What are some new solutions that I can come to? Not going to be easy. We don't do easy. Never leave a fallen comrade behind. This is important. It goes right there with mission first, but it also goes with ourself. How many times have you left yourself fallen? You felt defeated. You were wounded and you felt mortally wounded. And you gave up on you. You walked away from you. You walked away from that little girl that had hopes and dreams. You walked away from that young man who was going to take on the world. You walked away from your passions. You walked away and you allowed the darkness of chaos of the world to just come in like hordes of demons and swallow up, and you're standing off to the side going, oh, that sucks. Never going to go there again, but you left you fallen behind. Are you living your true feelings? Are you living your true purpose right now? Are you living your dreams and pursuing your dreams? Are you living with happiness? Are you pursuing it? Are you getting up each day saying, today's my day? Or are you just defeated and you are just existing? If you're existing, I dare say that somewhere along the lines, you were beat down and you fell. And you separated yourself from you. You separated yourself from your purpose. You separated yourself from your dreams and your goals and your passions and your desires. And you left you fallen behind. It's time to go back. This is for me, though. This is my ethos. So when I go to do self-reflection, I take a look and I say, okay, I don't leave a fallen comrade behind, including myself. And so where have I let me down? Where did I give up? I need to go back. These are just some of my ethos principles. But I believe that I've shared enough with you where you can understand the importance of an ethos-driven life. A warrior will live by a code. And like I said, over the next couple of days, we're going to be looking at different warrior codes and how they can be applied to our life. Individuals many times think that they have to come up with something new. And they're like, well, coach, I don't even know where to begin. I just showed you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Warriors before us have lived by codes for centuries. Go do your own study and find out what those codes are and see, do they apply to my life? And can I word them in a manner that I can make them my own? And then I highly suggest, until you get used to living by it, you write down your ethos. Carry it with you. And when you are faced with trials or tribulations or struggles, when you are faced with a insurmountable decision that you don't know what to do or how to make it, pull your ethos chart out and then start journaling. Okay, here's a principle, here's an ethos that I want to live by. How does this decision, either way, play in with the ethos? How does the ethos plug into that? You see, when we begin to do that, life now is no longer as chaotic as it would have been if we don't have clear and concise principles to live our life by. I will be true to myself. That is one of my ethos. When I say that, that means that I literally am able to understand, because I've learned who I am and I've learned my dreams, goals, passions, and I won't leave a fallen comrade behind, including myself. And so I've brought myself back. I've gone back and I said, okay, I will be true to myself. When I went to marry my wife, there were things that I told her about me, and there are things about me that I believe are core to my existence that I wasn't sure if she would accept, because it's a lot to accept. And they're personal things, but they're things that I had learned, that I had tried to move past, even though they were a core of who I am. And I tried to please others, and they didn't understand it, and it caused relationships to break apart. One of the reasons I said I would never get married again. So when my wife and I started dating, I sat down with her one day and I said, hey, I need you to understand, there are some things in my life, there are things that are the core of who I am, that I will not change. I had one of my ex-wives, if I did anything with grit, as you can tell, mostly women that are part of Grit Nation. We have a huge grit sisterhood. Well, anything that involved women, she wouldn't let me be a part of. Grit would have started years before. Grit started exactly when it needed to per the universe, but grit would have probably started years before. But anytime that I provided encouragement or words of advice to a woman, my ex-wife would feel threatened. No matter how much of the information I would give her. No, she had, excuse me, she had access to all my emails, all my text messages. She had access to everything. All my passwords, everything. Didn't matter. And so when I met my wife, I told her, I said, listen, you need to know I coach people. I'm an encourager. I'm a motivator. I seek, and my passion is to change people's lives. And in that means that there's going to be times where I am definitely going to be talking to other ladies. And she's like, okay, are you helping them? I'm like, yeah. She's like, how can I help? See, when I became true to myself and lived by my ethos, I found the right person to come up alongside of me. But I was true to myself, and understanding that if you cannot follow me on this path and allow me to be true to myself, then I'm not going to violate that ethos of me. So today, you want a warrior mindset? Start establishing your ethos. When you do, and you establish those set of principles that you will live by, and they become your foundation, then yes, life will still become chaotic, and life will still have those good times. They will have the tops and the lows. But you will find yourself steady in the storm. Not saying you won't be battered. I'm not saying you won't get hurt. You'll find yourself steady. And steady wins the war. Your response, your responsibility. Go grit it today.